ogres. They are indeed like onions. This is one of the most recognizable quotes from one of the most recognizable DreamWorks animated films of all time. And that is the legendary, the amazing, the stupendous Shrek.
You forgot incredible.
Oh, yes, definitely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty shameful of me. Well, I am Nate.
Mm-hmm.
I am a communications major. This is the beginning of my third year here at Toccoa Falls College.
My name is Lily. I'm a communications major also, and it's my senior year. Woo!
My name is Logan, and I'm also a communications major. Find that common thread between the three of us. And I'm the baby. It is my second year.
I am
at
the
TFC.
baby.
I'm the little child who's learning the ways of the world.
Yes, we still have to teach you how to walk and stuff.
And breathe. Yeah.
Yes.
Breathing's a struggle.
Yeah. Well, we're all here because we are all founders, actually, I would say, of the Toccoa Falls Film Club, and basically all this is we like movies, and so we're gonna talk about them.
Yeah.
And you can deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can deal with it.
Yeah.
You're going to listen to this podcast, and you're going to like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're thinking about what to do for our first podcast, and of course, the obvious choice is Shrek.
Mm-hmm.
It really is like an iconic movie for our generation. Like, it came out, what, 2001?
2001.
Like 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's still super funny.
Yeah,
like, it's
it
just,
holds up.
It's a great
does.
movie.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's a lot of movies, like, especially, I would say, earlier than the 2000s, that, or just in general, I'd say, that they just don't really hold up over time.
Mm-mm.
But this one is not one of those movies. I was playing volleyball, like, over summer break, and we were playing with a bunch of people from our church, and one of these kids, he's, like, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So we're listening to music while it's playing, and Smash Mouth comes on.
Yeah.
And he's like, this 12-year-old kid, he's like, oh, I love Shrek. And I got mad.
Man of culture.
I got mad because that movie belongs to my generation. This is our movie, and this stinker is stealing. I'm not gonna name him, so. No, but seriously, this movie is like, it's a cultural staple for us. Like, we all recognize it, and we all love it, and this movie kind of made DreamWorks what it is today.
Yeah.
Like, even like the opening DreamWorks, what would you call that?
Logo, like the opening title.
Yeah, opening title.
Yeah.
With the kid on the moon and he's fishing.
Yeah.
Even the song from that in modern DreamWorks movie comes from Shrek. That's where it came from. It wasn't in the DreamWorks movies before. And just everything about it's so different from anything that, like, up to that point. And I would argue that Shrek is the beginning of the multiverse.
The multiverse?
Yes. And hear me out. So, this is the beginning of the princess multiverse. This is a collection of fairy tales which, like, are from all over, mainly Europe. But you got Snow White in there, and you have, like, Beauty and the Beast isn't in there, is she? No, she's not in there.
No, it's
Cinderella, and, like, you have all these different princesses, and aside from just the princesses, all these fairy tale creatures, like childhood stories that, I mean, strangely enough, we still all grow up with.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, like, you have, like, the Three Little Pigs, and, like, just, it's the beginning of the multiverse, in my opinion.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
The MCU would not be where it is today without the power of Shrek.
Absolutely not. The MCU owes its success to the Shrek franchise.
Yeah.
I would argue just cinema in general owes its existence to Shrek.
Yeah, I can agree to that. Movies didn't exist before this. This was the first movie ever made. Before this, people just sat around and watched rocks and they watched paint dry.
Yeah.
There was nothing before Shrek.
Did you know that there's a Shrek museum in London?
Oh,
sorry.
yes, there is. Okay,
Yeah.
no, wait, I've been there. It's
You
not
have?
really like a museum. Okay, no, okay. Maybe we're not talking about the same thing, but in
Okay.
London, at the base of the
Yes,
London Eye,
exactly.
it is like a, okay, I was there, and they have a DreamWorks store, and I bought a plushie Shrek.
Oh.
I have a plushie Shrek from London, and I have a picture of me and him in front of Big Ben. And I remember that, yes, because, okay, here's what happened.
Okay.
Dr. Warner was walking me and Allie Ronk, to
Uh-huh.
buy tickets for us to go on the London Eye.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
were walking over there, and I see the poster. It's like this big poster for the Shrek store. And they have all these other posters, because you can kind of go in these, like, escape room / experience things based on, like, there's, like, different movies and things that you can go in, and one of them was Shrek. And I made eye contact with the DreamWorks store, because they have
Yeah.
other stuff, like, they have How to Train Your Dragon stuff, and there's stuff like that.
Um,
And I just I gasped, and I was like, and I looked at Dr. Warner, and I was like, can I go in there? Can I go in there? And he's like, sure. And then I went in, and I just was overwhelmed. They had merchandise galore of just Shrek and everything, and I loved it. And I got me a little plushie Shrek, and I loved it. And I came out of the store, and I was like, I got it. I secured the bag. And Dr. Warner was like, I've never seen anyone more happy about anything in my life. And I was like, we're in Europe, and I got excited about the Shrek
Yeah.
store.
I'm jealous of that experience. I didn't get to see that.
I wanted to, like, do the actual experience thing, like,
Yeah.
you got to walk through all these rooms that were themed after the movies, and at the end, I think you, like, met Shrek.
Whoa!
And I was like, we have to go, but it was like $30, and I was like, I'm
yeah.
broke, and we don't have time, unfortunately.
I do notice you're wearing your DreamWorks
I
Shrek
am.
shirt right
I
now.
am wearing my Shrek shirt today because it's appropriate.
It is very appropriate.
Yeah.
She came in with business attire.
Yeah.
At this point, if we're
Professional
considering this
dress.
business.
This is business.
Yeah. So one of the things that makes Shrek what it is that it honestly, it takes everything from a fairy tale formula, uses some elements of it, and then rejects the rest.
Yeah.
Like, it is anti-conformity film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you have your protagonist goes on a quest to go save a princess with a noble steed.
Yes,
I can't do the voice. And they go on this long quest and stuff. There's a dragon they have to fight. There's big celebration wedding at the end. So it follows the formula in that way. But everything else, it just doesn't. Like it's like the opposite of every fairy tale story that we ever hear. One thing I pointed out is that that I'm gonna point out is that the climax isn't actually that the hero saves the princess from the dragon. Like that's not the climax of the film. The climax is when Shrek saves Fiona from her wedding, which is a very unique take on things. Very different from the traditional thing. And then like even the beginning of the film, I don't know why I didn't start there. And like he starts reading this like fairy tale, and it's like there's this beautiful music. It is beautiful music, by the way. And he's like flipping through this thing, and he has like a soft voice, and it's like, oh, this is gonna be a very beautiful story. And then he proceeds to rip the page out of the book, use it as toilet paper, and he opens the door to the fantastic classic All-Star, and he just goes about his life in the swamp. Like this isn't like some beautiful landscape with like a little farm village or whatever that.
Immediately from the beginning, it sets itself apart. Because, it just starts out like nothing you've ever seen before.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing this green thing take a mud bath, and you're like, this is not what I was expecting. And then a very interesting thing to point out: Shrek is actually ugly. Like actually, there's a lot of fairy tales like the most common is Beauty and the Beast is the best one to point out, where they are ugly with quotation marks, but we all know.
Okay, yes, I said this before the podcast started. I will say it again. I will stand by it. The Beast is hot.
Yes. So on these other shows and stuff, they're like, oh, they're ugly or they're hideous and stuff, but really they're not. And then also he ends up turning into a prince. So sometimes with a lot of these like fairy tale stories, we have the message of like don't focus entirely on looks and like it's who the person is that counts. You know. But then they kind of like subvert that point by making them beautiful anyway. Yeah. It's like, but of course in the Beauty and the Beast case, it's a little bit different.
It's so much of a downgrade.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It still makes me angry.
Yeah. But Shrek is actually not pleasant to look at necessarily. Like,
I mean, I'm sure you could ask plenty of people on the internet, and they would disagree.
yeah, that is true.
People like Shrek.
They do.
Mhm.
People love Shrek in a romantic way.
Oh gosh.
But even if it's just like not so much about personal taste, he is like the very epitome
yeah.
of like being against beauty standards.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. He's green. He's large. His arms hang like way too
Mhm.
low,
Yeah.
and I will say though, what's working in his favor is the Scottish. Like,
I think
in my opinion.
I read something not too long ago that someone said that they thought Shrek was just talking in Shrek accent,
Yeah.
but they did not realize that it was just a Scottish accent. They were,
Okay.
I thought that's just how Shrek talks.
To be fair, it's a very light Scottish accent,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was surprised me in the movie because, like, I've never heard a light Scottish accent. It is either all the way in or it's
Yeah.
not there.
All the
That's
way.
true. For Fiona, like, she
Mm.
starts off as all the stereotypically beautiful things about a princess,
Mhm.
and she ends as the ogre. It's the
Yeah.
opposite of Beauty and the Beast.
Mhm.
And apart from that, Fiona isn't a normal princess. Like,
No.
she's not
Yeah.
like this kind of flimsy damsel in distress. She beats up Robin Hood, which
Yeah.
is, like, if you've read the Robin Hood books, that's got to be quite a feat. Like, Little John, that he's not easy to take out, I'm sure. I would not want to pick a fight with Little John, but she does, and wins.
I think she basically invented the the non damsel in distress
Mhm.
kind of. I think when we think of those, I mean, Disney has also made some of those, but not before this. This was definitely like a starting point for, oh, this girl knows how to fight and she's funny
Yeah.
and she has a personality and all this great stuff. And then it was definitely I definitely think she was like the first
Mhm.
of an animated princess who wasn't just, always in trouble, always needing saving. And she kept those traditional princess qualities. She was a nice person.
Yeah.
And she was good, but she also could like handle her own,
Mhm.
So I think that's really important, is that, she did have some princessy qualities that we see in traditional princesses,
Mhm.
but she also was just amazing.
Yeah.
She kind of reminds me of Rapunzel from Tangled,
Yeah.
which obviously came afterwards and bases a lot of the stuff off of this, I'd say. But, like,
Yeah.
a lot of that, like, a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. Or even like Merida. It would be
Oh,
one that I think
yeah.
of, because she's a redhead and
Yeah.
she fights and all this kind of stuff. I also think Brave is a great animated movie, but
Hands down, my favorite Disney princess movie. I think something that I kind of take away from this movie, and it seems to be a pretty common theme, is that maybe luxury isn't perfection. Like,
Yeah.
Shrek is happy with his swamp.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he doesn't. Fiona gets everything that a princess should want,
Mhm.
except for. Farquaad might be a little bit on the short side, but other than that, everything that she would stereotypically want. She would get to stay beautiful. She gets to live in this big palace, have this big, like, lavished wedding.
yeah.
Like, it's beautiful in all regards. And
Yeah.
she tries to hold on to this idea the whole time. Even,
Yeah.
like, when she was being rescued, like, she thought she was being rescued by the person who would marry her.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I must say, Shrek absolutely broke her neck in that scene. When he shakes her spine is gone. Like,
Yeah.
she's
Oh my gosh.
she's done.
Yeah.
Sorry, Farquaad, but
I mean, okay, I would argue that maybe, if you think about it, if she did go through the wedding, I still think she still would have turned into an ogre.
You think
Like,
so?
because it's supposed to be you're supposed to kiss like the true love. It's
Oh
not.
yeah.
So like she would have had to kiss Shrek to like have any sort of
that's
change.
true.
Mhm.
So even if she did marry Farquaad, it wouldn't have worked
Yeah.
out. In my opinion, I just don't think the lore would have,
The
stood for
lore.
that.
Yeah,
Shrek
I think
lore.
you're right. The whole film kind of just breaks every standard that we're used to in a
Mhm.
fairy tale movie. And like Shrek and Fiona end up being perfectly happy in the
Yeah.
swamp. Like they don't want this lavish thing, all this pompous wedding or
Yeah.
any of that stuff. They just want to be happy in their swamp together and
Yeah.
have. Apparently, they're close friends all there. I don't know how they became close to all these fairy tale people so quickly, but I mean, Donkey
Yeah.
Donkey counts. Yeah.
But I love, okay, this is like a staple for animated movies is to end with like a song and dance routine.
Yeah.
And I think that's ridiculously funny because this one also keeps that.
Yeah.
It's just like, where did that come from? Like, why were they just like, okay, let's play some like generic pop music or like generic song, and then everyone's just gonna like celebrate after this guy just got eaten by a dragon. We're all just gonna dance.
Do you wanna talk about the music?
I mean, yeah, sure. One of the things I loved about Shrek most was the music.
Amen.
Because, like, we keep talking about how it's just a parody of all these typical Disneyland stories and Disneyland animated movies, where in the fairy tales it'd usually be like a score, something ethereal, flowing, not usually a lot of lyrics as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Professor Goins would call it, I believe, a score, not a soundtrack.
Yeah.
But Shrek has a soundtrack. It's all pop music. It's stuff
Yeah.
like All Star and Hallelujah.
Yeah.
And it like really heavily relies on like a needle drop.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, a needle drop would be like when the music in the scene sort of matches the action in the scene. The perfect example being "Somebody Once Told
Yeah.
Me."
Yeah.
As soon as Shrek like
Greatest
opens the
opening
door.
of all time.
Yep. And yeah, it's just this complete reversal of what you'd expect from a fairy tale, and it works really well in Shrek's favor because instead of like it's a fun poppy kind of movie.
Yeah.
Shrek isn't out there wooing princesses. He's out there just doing his thing, having fun, trying to get a swamp back.
Yeah. Every single needle drop is just spot on.
Oh yeah.
It's perfect.
And I don't think it like overuses it or anything because it has its own. It does have its own score in there, definitely. And I just think the added element of all the pop culture songs, you know, whether it's you know, kind of rock music or whatever, it just is perfect. It's just perfect.
It is. It's beautiful too. The score part of the soundtrack is beautiful, and the actual like needle drops, they're just
it just mends together so well. It works because it's not overused on either side.
So many of these songs feel like they're made for the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
That's true.
But
Like,
All Star came out before the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Hallelujah. I'm pretty much all the soundtrack was not made for Shrek at all.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
no!
a believer.
Yeah, no, not at all.
That song is older. It was made by the Monkees, I believe, is
Who?
what the band's called.
Yeah,
the
they're
Monkees.
from like
Wait, which
the
song?
50s, 60s.
Or later than that. It's like
Wait, which song,
later
though?
than that. I'm a believer.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Hallelujah. I was like,
No.
No.
So like all these songs, like they were made before, but they're so perfect.
Yeah.
How much do you think it cost to like get the copyrights for all those songs and stick them in Shrek?
I don't
I don't
know.
know. I will say, okay, I did find when I was researching, this is the first animated movie to ever use pre-existing music
Really?
in it. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
obviously,
Making
yeah.
history.
It was, and that's why the soundtrack is so interesting. Is because no animated movie had ever done anything like that before.
It's kind of set a trend too, I'd say.
Oh,
A lot
definitely.
of animated movies.
Yeah.
Some news that I found out actually while researching to talk about this that's really, really sad is that the lead singer of Smash Mouth actually
Oh, he died a few
Yeah.
weeks ago.
like not that long
No,
ago.
yeah, this was not long at all, which
Yeah.
is really sad.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah, but I mean his contributions to
Society.
culture,
Yeah.
Will always be
Is-
remembered.
yeah, like
Never
it's
be
beyond anything that the band could do alone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was and the movie like was greatly influenced and like beneficially so by the song. So they just kind of mutually
Benefit.
Oh.
From,
Sorry. Something else I wanted to say about the soundtrack is like, it's not a musical at all.
No.
Like, you'd expect the fairy tale to be a musical, like think Beauty and the Beast, Belle singing,
Yeah.
Gaston, and
Ooh, that was a little French.
That
yeah,
was.
Oh, Gaston.
Baguette.
But they try to throw the musical aspect
Yeah.
in there just
Yeah.
for a second.
Like with Robin, any like time the musical starts, Shrek is like, no.
He's gonna shut that
Donkey
down.
does a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
Robin Hood
Donkey-
does it.
Robin Hood, yeah.
Robin Hood, Fiona like sings to that bird, which is like classic
He
princess
explodes.
thing, and
Which,
that's
speaking of-
hilarious.
if the bird explodes, where's the blood? Why is Fiona not just spattered in blood all over?
The movie would increase in a rating.
It would, yeah. Okay, so in the scene where he gets an arrow stuck in his booty, she pulls the arrow out and there's no blood on it because if blood is shown on a weapon, a movie is automatically PG-13.
What if it could have been like, they could have made it like green blood or like ooze or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be gross.
It'd be pretty gross.
Wait, the movie's not PG-13?
It's PG.
Okay, there's so many things in there that should make it PG-13.
Okay, yeah,
I feel like
because
Shrek's bare butt should have made it
PG-13. Yeah, it really should have.
That was like in the opening scene.
Yeah, it was in the opening scene and with the dragon.
Yeah, I bet parents were like, as soon as they saw that, if they took their kid to see it, they were like, oh no, what have I gotten myself into?
I personally think whoever's job it was to decide the rating for Shrek should be fired.
Should be fired. It does use, especially, I say like light cussing when I say that because you know they have some words in there.
Yeah.
And you know, I watched it as a kid, and that part kind of went over my head. And as I grew up, I was like, whoa, they really say that in that movie. And that's why my brother's not allowed to watch it. My brother's 8, and if we let him watch it, he'll just repeat everything. Oh, no. So we can't let him watch it.
Oh no.
Another thing is there's a lot of innuendo.
Oh yeah,
a lot more than I was expecting. A lot of short jokes.
Oh yeah. That's one of the greatest things about this movie too is though it's entertaining for all ages.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, it's hilarious. Like you get to like one of the things I wrote down that I always thought was like so funny was whenever there's the executioner and he's like, "3, my lord."
The two fingers. My sister quote that all the time.
And like you were saying, the Fiona exploding the bird, I thought that was hilarious as a kid.
Yeah.
And anything that comes out of Donkey's mouth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Everything.
I love the scene when he's like, she sends him in the forest to go get the flower.
Oh yeah.
And he's like looking around. He's surrounded by the blue and red flowers, and he's like, "This would be so much easier if I wasn't colorblind."
It's so funny for kids, but then also the adults find it very entertaining as well. Which I don't think it was done really before this. I don't believe so.
Oh yeah, like the adult humor stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say it was done with television because obviously stuff like The Simpsons had come out before this, and that was definitely the meld of the using animation with adult humor. And now this is like bringing it into movies.
Yeah.
Because I would say maybe you could watch a Disney movie. I would say, okay, so the movie I kind of compare this to, I say, is Toy Story.
Oh, yeah.
That was Disney's first CGI animated movie. Technically the first CGI animated movie ever released.
Right.
And this was the next thing to come out that wasn't Disney, but still CGI animated.
Yeah.
There's a couple jokes in Toy Story that, like, if you're an adult, you could maybe catch. I would say maybe, like, 1 or 2, max.
Yeah.
In Shrek, though, it's just like, we're going to pop them in there. We don't care who's listening. We don't care that your kid's 5. We're just going to throw this joke in there, and you're going to have to suffer through it.
Yeah. There's a lot that you just have to watch for, but I wrote down 4 of some of my favorite jokes that flew over my head as a child. First is Farquaad. I will say nothing about that.
No further comment.
Yeah.
We all love Lord Farquaad.
Do we?
He's a great villain.
We love his name.
Okay,
He's a great villain,
his name describes him very well.
Yeah, it was compensated for something. And then I love that game show scene where it's like showing all the different princesses, and it goes to Snow White, and it says, "Although she lives with 7 other men, she's not easy." I've never heard Snow White portrayed in that way. That's interesting.
I love the beginning when they're all invading Shrek's house. They put her in the coffin on the table, and Shrek is like, no, dead broad off the table. And they're like, where else are we supposed to put her? That's taken.
And then the wolf.
The wolf.
Oh,
we'll
the wolf was
leave
funny.
It at that. That is definitely another
hold
joke.
on. Let's not leave it at that because, Puss in Boots is set in the Shrek universe as well.
Yes.
And I just love the dichotomy between the 2 kinds of wolves in the Shrek universe.
True.
Yes.
Whoa, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another one that I have written down is it's a song. I'm not gonna sing it, but it's "Please keep off the grass, shine your shoes, wipe your face."
That is good. That's funny though. That is funny.
It reminds me of the Nacho Libre song.
Okay, I was just about to say that. My dad thinks that's the funniest thing in the world, and he'll sing it. He thinks it's so funny, and I think it's funny too.
It's hilarious. It's so great.
It's clever. It's clever. It catches you off guard because you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, because you think they're gonna say something,
and
and
you're
then
like,
they don't.
am I the problem? Am I the one who's like the problem?
Yeah, and then it has to be one of the greatest ones in the thing. Speaking of almost saying things that you think they're gonna say, but they don't actually. I have to save my ass.
But of course he's talking about Donkey.
Oh, of course.
I think
yes.
you mean his noble steed.
Yes,
Yeah.
his noble steed.
And I just love how that catches Fiona off guard.
Yeah.
What kind of knight are you?
One of a kind. Lily, do you want to talk about memes?
Yeah, okay, so I'm sure if you've existed, you've seen Shrek memes just anywhere and everywhere. I have some like background information about the movie first though.
Oh.
So, because I learned this, the movie was stuck in development for like 7 to 8 years. It was like began being put together in 1993.
Whoa.
And didn't make its debut till 2001. So obviously this thing had to fight to get
Yeah.
made. Because a lot of movies die in development.
Yes.
So the fact that this one just made it out is a blessing.
It is a blessing.
But it's just kind of crazy. It was, when it came out, it was like critically acclaimed. People loved this movie. The audience loved it. The kids loved it. The adults loved it. The critics loved it.
Oh, yeah.
And it won the Academy Awards in 2001, which is probably like the first time a non-Disney animated movie had ever won
Was it?
anything.
I might be wrong. Was it the first animated movie to...
I don't
No, it wasn't.
think it was the first animated movie because I'm pretty sure Disney movies before that had won
Okay.
Academy
Yeah, like
Awards.
the Prince of Egypt came out before.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it won an Academy Award.
Which kind of
It was
followed...
DreamWorks too.
Yeah.
That is a DreamWorks movie.
Oh, I heard a story. Apparently, if you were working on Prince of Egypt and weren't doing good enough of a
I did
job,
hear about this.
you get banished to Shrek.
Oh, but come on. I would want to be
Yeah,
banished.
now that's like, you want to be banished.
I mean, but back then, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Because
fairy
you're like
tale
working
about
on
an
this
ogre.
like deep biblical based story, and then they're like, okay, you go down the hall and you go sit with the people who are making the movie about the ugly ogre.
Yeah.
This movie is not Disney. This is
Nope.
entirely anti-Disney. It's opposite of Disney.
Yes.
It's everything Disney is not.
exactly.
And that's great because it pokes fun at the tropes that are used
Yeah.
in fairy tales, and it pokes fun at culture itself. Because we talked about, you know, how we're always like, oh, you need to be beautiful, and the prince needs to be beautiful, and the princess has to be a pretty little lady. And we're like, never mind, forget that, throw that out.
Out the window.
Out the window. Obviously, so there's a lot of sequels. There's 3
Yeah.
other movies after this one, plus 2
Puss in
spin-offs.
Boots
Puss in
and
Boots.
the show.
There's TV shows.
Yep.
There's a lot of spin-offs. But, so it kind of,
Musical. Ugh.
I feel like, wait, what?
There's a musical.
Oh, the musical's great.
It
We don't
is?
talk about the musical.
No, I talk
No,
about the musical.
stop-
Come talk to
stop
me about the
talking about
musical.
musical.
I will talk about the musical with you every day, all day. I remember when I first watched it when I was sick. Maybe that's why. I had the flu or something, and I watched it, and then I was like, that was amazing. And I watched it
Okay.
again right
Okay,
after it
hold on
ended.
Being a musical goes against everything Shrek stands for. He fights against musicals in the very movie.
I cried when I watched the musical because it just
I
is,
did too.
It's deeper. I cried in an emotional way, not just because it like yes, it's not supposed to be a musical, but the songs give such like a deeper insight to the characters, and I love it. I will say so the movie, I would say the franchise itself just kind of loses momentum over the years because people are like, oh, the sequels aren't as good as the first one, or they're like, these are just cash grabs, like all the spin-offs and whatnot. So it kind of like lost itself for a little while, and then I feel like once the memes got a hold of it, there was like a Shrek revival where everyone was
There
like, do
was.
you remember Shrek?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the good thing is everyone remembered Shrek
Yep.
because it's nostalgic, it's classic, it's recognizable, it's relatable.
It's quotable.
Dr.
It's
Warner.
really
quotable. It's quotable.
Dr. Warner would call it a cultural myth.
Yeah. It was
True.
basically like rediscovered because everyone was like, oh, remember how good that was?
Yeah.
And it helps that it's quotable. It helps that it's just goofy and funny to begin with. And it's just well known. Like you see that meme and you're like, I know what that's from.
Yeah.
And that makes it relatable. And I just think the entire Shrek franchise, I lovingly call it the Shrek Cinematic Universe, or
Yes.
the SCU.
The
It's,
SCU.
it's full of, I personally love every single movie and everything in the Shrek universe. I know people are always like hating on the third one and the fourth one and whatnot, but I absolutely love those. You want to talk about those? Come to me. I will just gush. I love those movies. I think that it's just a franchise that's full of great characters. They're great movies, and I would argue that the recent meme resurrection of these movies has really brought life back to the franchise. And it makes me personally very hopeful for the future because they obviously Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was one of the greatest.
It was
animated movies in the last few
fantastic.
years.
That wolf was like one of the most terrifying
Yeah.
animated
Honestly,
bad guys ever.
Everything about that movie was just perfection. It just made me so happy because, number one, the original Puss in Boots came out so long ago, and obviously, why would you make a sequel to this, like, spin-off that didn't do so well? But like they put so much love into it, and that made me so happy because it's like there was no reason to make it. It probably, if it had like gone a little less good, it would have lost them probably a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they made it anyways, just because they know people love the character and they love the story, and it makes me hopeful for the future because they hinted at Shrek 5 and they have that kind of in the works now.
Yeah.
And even though sometimes the sequels aren't always as good, I just think if you put the effort and love into it, like they did with The Last Wish, it can still be so good. They just saw how much people cared about it, and they were like, we're going to put the love and care into this that should in the first place.
It really did, like, bring people back to it. Because, like with some, like, and some of the sequels aren't too bad, but, like, with some of them, it did kind of lose kind of a fan base. But like you said, there was kind of, like, this revival thing going on where they make a movie about 20 years after the original, and it really, like, sparks everyone's interest again, and it's very nostalgic. Yeah, Shrek, like, honestly, it is a part of our generation at this point. Like, we've all grown up with it.
Absolutely.
We've all seen all these sequels and stuff, and a lot of our humor, I would say, is based around some of the stuff in Shrek.
That's true.
It's really shaped a generation. And as Dr. Warner would say, although he would put it way more elegantly than I would probably, but, like, we kind of, like, the generation following kind of created Shrek. It made Shrek what it is.
Yeah.
And Shrek then also created the following generation.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of this back and forth creation of meaning.
A community is a culture of shared meaning.
Yes.
Exactly.
We've created a community of Shrek.
Yes.
And I honestly wish I could, like, go back and watch it for the first time. Like, I wish I could just watch it without having any context and just remember what it felt like to see it for the first time.
Yeah, so for anyone who has not seen Shrek, we highly recommend you see it, and we will not be friends with you until you do.
Yes.
And for those who have seen Shrek, go give it another watch, the original sometime soon, because it's a fantastic movie. We watched it not too long ago, and it was a really good time.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed it. So.
All right, that's all from us then.
Thanks for listening.
All. Yeah. Thanks for
tune in next
giving
time
your
to
time.
see someone else do a podcast about something else.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. All right.
Peace out. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace.